How's it going, guys? It's Eclipse here, and it's update news time for World of Tanks console. We'll look through all of the information given yesterday by Wargaming themselves in the form of the update stream. We're going to be having a look at exactly what came out, what statistics they've revealed for the new tanks that have come into the game, and then my kind of caution as to what these statistics are like. Of course, we've got some quality of life stuff, we've got things for next week, and of course, some works in progress, and we'll cover all of that in this video. Obviously, it will be timestamped, so you can check that out as of when you want to pick out the specific areas of the video if you want to do that. And of course, remember, there's loads more update news covering the recent new vehicles as well on the channel that you can have a look at, and some plenty of guides as well. Now, first things first, what did we get revealed within the stream? Well, Italian heavy tanks and the balanced statistics were revealed, so that's for the K91, the T22 medium, and also the Italian heavies. Now, first thing I want to note is, it's been, less than a week now since they've been released in the game. Do I think that this is enough time to get detailed statistics that are correct for the tank? No, absolutely not. It's 5 days. Lots of people are going to be playing them. Some of the top players that have got the time and they've got the energy are going to be playing these tanks first. So yes, they might say that they're number one in the win rate for the week. They might say that they're number one for the average damage, but that is because they're so recent. And of course, the people that are able to get to tier 10 already probably have free XP'd the tank, or at least played a lot of games, and I mean a lot of games, in order to be able to get there within the last 5 days, basically. And that's going to basically mean that it's going to be slightly harder, there's going to be slightly higher damage, because it's going to be the more veteran players, or the more experienced players, or the players that are just willing to spend a hell of a lot more time playing the tanks. So that's kind of my pre-warning as to the statistics, but here they are. Tier 7, Carro d'Assalto, this is the P88, owned by 8,600 players, and the average win rate is 50.76%. That's number 3 out of 12. Kind of shows you that even with the beginning, and that it's going to be the majority of players having a go in it, it's number 3 out of 12. Average damage is number 1 out of 12, so it's not too bad. But then again, that's probably just because it's one of the most played tanks at the minute. And so, yeah, you're going to be having all of the good players playing in it right now. And I guess that it will level out over the next maybe month or two when the tank line kind of gets not forgotten about, but less important to a lot of players. And then, of course, we have the Tier 8, the Progetto. This is very similar. It has number 1 out of 14 for win rate and average damage. And then the Tier 9, we have the very same story, number 1 out of 16 for both win rate and average damage. And then the Tier 10, we've got win rate is 3rd out of 20 and an average damage number 1 out of 20. Now, I believe the damage statistics and the win rate are for the actual tanks in terms of what they are, like heavy tanks, if that makes sense, not just overall all of the tier rates within the game. Not entirely sure. Wargaming haven't really released that kind of information as to what the tanks actually are, whether or not it's just all of the tier 7s in the game. I would assume it is all of the tier 7 heavies within that tier, if that makes sense, to make up the 12 number. And then K91, obviously got a pretty big buff, I guess, for those of you who play it, and the T22 medium also getting a big buff. Now, before the 7 days prior to the change, compared to after 3 days of data, still stabilising. Of course, that's the key thing, it is still stabilising. Lots of players have already kind of played these tanks. They've not really had too many battles, if that makes sense, so it'd be cool to see how many battles had been played in each of these tanks overall. That'd be a nice statistic to see, but this is kind of one of the important things to note. So before, daily battles were 422, now they're 1,400 in the K91. Win rate was 48.86% before, and now it's 51.94. Survival was 28, and now it's 32 pretty much. And damage was 1,800, and now it's 2,200. So it's gone up slightly. Does that mean this tank is absolutely brilliant and you should definitely try this thing out and you'll definitely get a 52% win rate if you play in it? Absolutely not. It's definitely down to your own personal playstyle. Do you enjoy the tank? Definitely don't take these statistics and go, I must have all of these tanks because they're number 1 out of 14. Because, let's face it, just because they're number one at the minute doesn't mean that they'll stay at number one. And I'm sure, as with every single new tank line release, they all are the exact same in terms of the damage and stuff like that. And it's just because they're new. Maybe in a month's time, you'll see them drop down to probably like 5th and 6th and stuff like that, depending on what the kind of, how many people are playing them. Then, of course, T22 Medium, that was before and after. So before, there was 111 daily battles, which is tiny, and now it's 347. The win rate went from 49% to 54%. Bearing in mind, 300 battles in an entire day with the entire player base, counted within that is tiny. So this can vary massively between the different tanks. So, of course, you might have an increase of 6% there. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually a 66%, because one of the players could be a 64% average win rate player that's just decided to jump in the T22 medium for the day, played 50 battles, and that makes up, a 7th of the entire games within that day. And so, it's going to skew it very, very differently. Whereas, say, the Carro d'Assalto P88, you've probably got a lot of players playing that at the minute, and so you're going to have the statistics be lower. That's because there's more players that actually are able to get it, and so, these are probably more of the statistics you'd be likely to see compared to some of these down here. But that's just because there's more people with this tanks, and the free tanks especially. Now, moving away from the statistics, hopefully that kind of gave an overview of them and kind of explained why some of these may be higher than what they probably should be in the game. Then, this week, what's coming in with this update? Well, we've got quite a few things. We have got a lot of quality of life update fixes and stuff like that, and it's that multi-base assault frequency is now reduced to 5% in random battle, so you won't be able to play multi-base assault unless you get in the 1 in 20 game to be able to play it. Obviously, balance changes for the following maps are happening, so that's Mountain Pass, Kasserine, Pilsen and Highway. So if you see any changes with regards to the maps and where you may spawn and the various different things, Mountain Pass, Kasserine, Pilsen and Highway are getting some changes, and so hopefully that makes it a little bit more easier to play from the certain spawn that obviously apparently got a disadvantage. Now, Commander Filter now has nation affiliate/affiliation filters to support cross-mode transfers, filters saved after exiting the Commanders tab. So this basically means that when you pick a nation or affiliation in the filter screen, when you swap over to the other game mode, it will continue saving basically the nation and affiliation filter so that you can then swap back to the different modes, if that makes sense, and not have your filter constantly changing between the two modes. Now, we also got a custom game select tank option now functions as a spectator. We've got gifts received will now show in the logs, so if you get a gift you'll actually be able to see it. I'm surprised that hasn't been in the game longer. With missiles has been made the red dot less bright on the map in Fredvong. Object 257 is now researched correctly in certain cases. Vineyard now plays loading music. KV4 KTTS is now visible in the premium tech tree, so if you want to purchase it, you can. And Tank Commander PvP, earn the Thunderbolt is still going on. Tankathlon challenge to earn silver and consumables will continue. And this week was the highest weekday playtime of the year. So this was for this week. Of course, let me know what you thought of this kind of quality of life and all of these changes that came into the game, basically. As far as next week's news, we have a handful of minor quality of life fixes to the UI. We've also got the brand new tanks. There's 10 of them. We covered them in yesterday's video, giving my opinion on what they're most likely going to be like when they come into the game. Of course, we don't have the detailed statistics of the vehicles, but it's just a good indication. Of course, there's my opinions on Cold War in there, but they're kind of separate to the video. It's all still relevant, what we go through. supported by the Light Tank Bootcamp Challenge. So that's the challenge that's coming in this week. And of course, if you want to be able to pick up these tanks as quickly as possible, you'll have to elite your M46A1 and get a lot of free XP or XP built up on the tank. And then you can just research the first one, being the M24 Chaffee, I believe, as the first light tank within the line that comes off of the M46. So if you really want to play it, then that's what you have to do. Hopefully you give them your opinions on the new tanks. Do you actually like them? Are you not bothered? Are you just going to be playing World War II? Just let me know in the comment section down below. And I always find it interesting to see what you guys think. Of course, yes, I am slightly World War II biased, as that's just the game I prefer to play, but it doesn't mean we won't cover the Cold War stuff. And if I get the opportunity to play in some of these light tanks from grinding myself, which I'll probably actually do because I like the look of the Bradley and some of the other tanks within the tech tree, the Stingray, stuff like that, then yeah, we'll give it a go, and maybe you'll see some videos on that. And of course, Bounty Hunter, Big Top, Mercenary Tank, and Lost Renegade Commander. That's from the 27th of July, which is next Tuesday, running until the September 13th. So this is the next Mercenary Tank coming into the game, the Big Top. We can actually probably have a look at the Big Top actually, and just give you an overview of what the Big Top actually is in game. So the Big Top, here it is. This is what it is. It's a tier 7 medium tank for the Mercenary line. You've got pretty weak penetration on your standard rounds, but really good penetration on your premium rounds. 240 alpha damage, 1100 hit points, 390 vision, which is nice, 50 kilometers an hour top speed. You've got a variety of different things. Your rate of fire is pretty poor actually, 6.32 rounds a minute, meaning the reload is 9.5 seconds, but you can get that down to probably 7.5 with all of the DPM buffs that you can put on your tank equipment, crew skills, stuff like that. Not a bad tank. 2.3 seconds aim time, going to be even better because of all of the buffs and the crew skills and stuff you can put on the tank, so it's going to be fairly accurate. Armor is pretty weak. I mean, turret armor might be able to bounce a few shots when you hold down, but you do have kind of this M4 Sherman hull. Yes, you might be able to bounce a few shots, but if people are aiming properly, and especially if you're coming up against tier 9s, they will just pen straight through your frontal hull armor in terms of the upper plate, let alone the lower plate. So yeah, it's kind of something to keep in mind if you're going to be grinding towards this tank. I don't think it's particularly amazing, but definitely a tank that if you don't have a Mercenaries tier 7, then maybe you want to get it, and certainly it's something to do if you're kind of a little bit bored and you've completed the season, then yeah, I would recommend maybe doing that, and that comes out on Tuesday. Now, works in progress or talked about by Wargaming as far as what they think is going to come out, or at least what they're thinking about developing within the game. Now, first things first, contract system is being worked on. So this is yet again another, we're doing the mercenary contracts. Here it is, it's being worked on. They've basically said that for the last 7 months since update 6.0. But yeah, they're still working on it. Hopefully that actually comes into the game sometime soon, but we don't really know. And it'll be a good change when it does actually come, finally. Multi-turret and controls. So, Pain God mentioned the difficulty in mapping controls for this. So, multi-turret. Not entirely sure what it means by this. I would suggest that there's multiple turrets. So, you've got maybe one turret, you've got another turret, you can use one and then you'll swap to the other turret and then fire. Yes, it kind of sounds self-explanatory, but not entirely sure what they mean by this. Maybe you'll have like a big turret with a 105mm cannon, and then on the second turret, maybe you'll have a weaker turret. I don't know if that's an actual thing in real life. Not entirely sure whether Wargaming are just completely throwing it up into the air and just making something that they fancied giving a go and putting it into the game. Maybe not, it'll work. But yeah, let me know what that actually is in game. I would assume that it is just like having two turrets. I'm not entirely sure how that will work, whether it will be a good change for the game, whether it's going to be a bad one, but certainly interesting to say the least. I would definitely like to see something like this, and I like that they're trying out new stuff. It's definitely something a bit of fresh air, if that makes sense, and I think it's definitely interesting. Do I think that they need to be tested. Yes, absolutely. I don't want something coming into the game if it's just going to be completely broken, or if it's just that bad that no one's ever going to really play them because they just have that big of a weakness within the game. I think you have to still make them competitive, but not blatantly overpowered, like with some of the previous Mercenary tanks that they just decided to make one day. And obviously got a big backlash there. Do I think these tanks are going to be worth grinding whenever they come into the game? Yes. I think that they probably will be. Completely novel idea, actually. I don't think World of Tanks at all on any of the versions have a multi-turreted tank, so I think it's very interesting. Console are deciding that they're going to actually develop this on World of Tanks Modern Armour. Maybe it'll in fact, I bet it will be on the Cold War game mode, because I doubt that multi-turreted tanks will be put onto World War II just because they don't want to mess about with the game mode or annoy any World War II players currently. Now, tech tree improvements. So, tech tree, you know what currently happened after Update 6.0? We've got this vertical tech tree. Absolutely don't like it myself. I find it's actually harder to find a tank. They said that originally they wanted it to be more seamless and easier to understand, but I think that it kind of went in the opposite direction. Now it's a lot harder to see, and I think Pain God and all of the developers have realised this, and now they're kind of reverting back to that horizontal tech tree where you go from tiers left to right, so 1 to 10, left to right. Easier, much better way of doing it. That's why World of Tanks PC and World of Tanks Blitz both have the horizontal tech tree. It just makes sense. I don't like the vertical one, and I'm glad that they are going to be doing that. They did mention that a couple of weeks ago, so although it says tech tree improvements, I am pretty sure that that's what they mean about it being improved. Now, class-based matchmaker adjustments. So this is a key thing that I think is a big problem right now, and that is the fact that you can come up into games where you have 5 heavy tanks against 5 mediums, and there is literally maybe just light tanks and tank destroyers then on the team. So you've got basically heavy tanks fighting against medium tanks, and then if you get a map that's just heavy tank orientated, which team is going to win? Well, it's going to be the one with loads of heavy tanks, or at least more likely to win, considering it's going to be a heavy map. Or alternatively, if you get 5 heavy tanks against 1 heavy tank and 4 medium tanks as kind of the way it's actually matchmaked against each other on both teams, and you get something like Prokhorovka, well, the heavy tanks are going to be far more useless on Prokhorovka than the medium tanks, and hence why the medium tank team will probably have a much higher chance of winning the game, and that's just down to the tanks that the matchmaker has kind of put together into one game. So I think that definitely needs being worked upon. They're looking at doing that, and of course things like having 3 artillery in one game, I would absolutely ban that. I'd say that the maximum artillery in one game would be 2. That would pretty much solve the entire artillery problem. I think it gets into a real big problem when you have 3-man platoons of T-92s that can just focus one person. They don't even have to hit the tank, and they can take out any tank within the game with missing, as long as they're at least somewhat within the proximity of the tank that they're all aiming at. I think that is absolutely disgusting, and I want to see, to be honest, I would prefer it if it was just 1 artillery per team, and then have maybe 2 artillery per team. I think that would be a more realistic approach. Definitely don't think there should be 3 artillery in one game, and definitely not 4 artillery in one game either. Would be my opinion on making some maybe other class-based improvements, but we'll have to see what Wargaming say about that in a later update news, and so hopefully that comes into the game. Players can expect at least 3 new maps for each major update. So in terms of major updates, what does that basically symbolise? Well, it's pretty much every time a new season comes out. So, this most recent one being G.I. Joe ends in August, I believe, late August, somewhere around there. It's about 2 months for the season. Comes with Dukla Pass, Heilbronn, Redshire and Muravanka. We don't know what the new season is going to be. Usually it trends with the PC version, because of course they've got G.I. Joe kind of themed stuff going on right now. So I would assume when the PC season pass ends and they get a new one, console will kind of follow in that kind of suit. And I guess we'll see what they have to say about that. I'm actually really quite happy to be seeing Redshire back in the game, probably my favourite map ever within World of Tanks. We then got Heilbronn, which I don't mind, probably not my favourite. Duke La Pass I actually quite like, and then Muravanka, also a good map to be seeing back in the game. Really am happy with the next maps to be coming back. Obviously Heilbronn being the one that's kind of meh, but it definitely has an opportunity for each of the classes to have a good game on the map, which is always a good positive for me. Then we have an opportunity for you to let Wargaming know what exactly you think about potentially seeing whole patch kits in World War II. Now, personally, I don't really want to see that in World War II. I just don't see the point. I don't think that they're that overpowered, but I just don't think there's any reason to mess about with that kind of mechanic within World War II. Whether or not you guys think that, of course, it's up to the community, but obviously let Wargaming know. I think that they have a poll going in their Discord server, so if you want to actually give your own opinion as to what that is, I think you can do that in the Discord server under the community tab, and they have like the polls or something like that on there. I'll also run a poll on my channel, so if you want to actually give some feedback, then you can do that on the poll on my channel as well. So we'll kind of get a bit of information for Wargaming. They said that they will only do this with an overwhelming majority, so I would guess probably 60% or 75% of people actually want to see this within the game. So they won't be doing it if it's like 50-50 or 51-49 in favour of it. It's got to be a significant amount of players that actually enjoy it, will want to see this. And of course, I think since the vocal minority who are going to be voting on the poll, I doubt that you'll see patch kits in World War II, to be honest, in terms of the voting anyway. Then +1, -1 matchmaking has been approved to be run over weekends. So +1, -1 will be coming to the game on the weekend. So if you want to play +1, -1, it's going to be over every single weekend, whereby anyone and everyone will be able to play +1, -1. So there's been a lot of comments on the channel saying that we want +1, -1. I want +1, -1 permanently. I'm sick of playing 2 tiers lower. +1, -1 will be coming into the game, and I'm sure a lot of you will be very happy with that. Of course, let me know your opinions in the comment section down below, and of course, +1, -1 should be really good for playing in your tier 6s and 7s, where you'll be predominantly never meeting tier 9s, and you can kind of choose when you want to play, because, you know, if you're interested in grinding out some of the poorer tech tree tanks, then maybe you want to play them on the weekend, and then maybe play some premiums during the week where you can earn a little bit of silver to keep you ticking over when you want to upgrade and get the next tank in the grindable tech tree. I think that is a massive improvement for the new player experience. I think it's going to be so much nicer for a lot of the players that are going to be playing this game, and I'm definitely a big favour of that. It has been improved. Really good to see that in the game, and of course we'll just see how it fares when it comes into the game. We can't say it's going to be fantastic because it might end up being a bit of a sucker, but for me personally, I think it will be a fantastic way to move forward with World of Tanks console. Then the next major tank features will release in the following order. So first things first, multi-turreted tanks. So what does that mean? Well, it's a tank with 2 turrets, basically, or 3 turrets. I don't entirely know how many turrets these things are going to get. I don't really think that these are going to be very well balanced to begin with. I don't know that they'll be overpowered. Whether or not they'll be super underpowered, no idea. But I guess we'll have to see when they come into the game. And they will be coming into the game fairly soon, I would say, in the next month or 2. Maybe the first one will come in during the next season, and then they'll release maybe a tech tree versions of the multi-turret tanks. Don't know. Hopefully they'll be good, hopefully they'll be an interesting thing to play, and of course when they come out I will be making videos on them, so if you haven't already subscribed and you want to check out the multi-turreted tanks and all of the information regarding them as and when we get given it, then basically subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, or just alternatively come back and watch the videos whenever you see that. Wheeled vehicles will then be coming into the game, and then finally double-barreled tanks. So the order that we'll be seeing: multi-turreted, wheeled tanks, and then double-barreled tanks. Really interested to see where they put the wheeled tanks. Will they be on the World War II mode? Will they be on the Cold War mode? Will they be on both? I'm kind of interested to see what they do with them. Of course, let me know your thoughts on wheeled tanks and whether you want to see them in the game. big controversy on PC. And then, of course, double barrel tanks, which I think are the ones that people wanted the most in terms of on-worlder tanks. And I'm interested that they put that last in terms of the major tank features and their release order. And final few things, medals are also coming back to Cold War, so you'll be able to get your medals back into the game. So you'll basically be able to see what kind of medals that you'll have within the game, top guns, that sort of thing. Nothing too special. I still really want to see the ribbons back in the game, so you can actually see during the game what you're actually getting within the game. Don't know, I think it was a good kind of addition. I don't see why they took it out. It didn't really matter, did it, within the game? It definitely didn't take up too much space, but I don't know. That's just my opinion. I would have liked to see ribbons back in the game, but yeah, maybe a feature to be able to turn it off or turn it on, depending if you want it. I think that would be a good feature for those of you who are interested in medals or ribbons within the game. And then, you know, for those of you who aren't, you can turn it off. Not a big problem. Would be an interesting way for wargaming to develop into that kind of quality of life stuff, and that might be an avenue that they may do in the future. But of course, we have to let them know, and that's kind of my way of doing it, I guess, within these videos. And then finally, the fourth mark of excellence was briefly talked about. I think it is actually coming in as maybe 100%, or it could alternatively be the kind of, they shuffle them down, if that makes sense. So the fourth mark of excellence would actually be the third mark of excellence, and there's a mark of excellence in there for the newer players between 65 and 0% of your marks of excellence. Of course, currently the marks of excellence system is 65%, 85%, and then 95% respectively. First one being 65, second one being 85, third one being 95. And then I think that personally this will come in at 100%. Not entirely sure. And I did think I saw a comment that actually said that that was correct, that the 100% mark of excellence will be the fourth marks of excellence, and that it will actually be 3 marks of excellence, but gold or something like that in the game. Not entirely sure if that's correct, but from what I could gather from a couple of comments, I think that that was kind of the gist of it, and that actually it would just be like the current marks of excellence system. Once you've achieved it, it will stay on your tank forever. And then you'll just basically have this permanent thing that just shows you that you were one of the best players within the tank ever, basically within the game. Of course, let me know your thoughts on all of the information that we've covered today, whether or not you thought this was a good video or not. Let me know in the comment section down below. And also, if you want to check out those new Cold War light tanks coming into the game, and also the medium tanks, then you can do that in the previous video, which I will have linked on screen right now. If you want to check out other content, there will be another video on screen, and of course you could always check out the channel if you want to see some more. Other than that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and a big thank you to everyone that's watched this video, and of course our channel members for paying that little bit extra and just supporting me in a little bit of an extra way. Really do appreciate you all, and thank you very much. Hope to see you in the next video. Goodbye.